Hi, my name is Debbie, and I am obsessed with all things to do with ultrasound. I'm an empty nester who has spent the last 28 years scanning in all different kinds of situations: clinics, hospitals, point of service, emergency departments, private offices, echovascular, general, high risk OB, and want to dive down deep into all things to do with technology, techniques, and transformation. It's time we take ultrasound to the next level. Think of this like your little power boost on your commute to all things ultrasound, along your way to the thing that we call work. So pull up a seat, make sure you're comfy, and be ready to be challenged and encouraged as we learn it's all about the frequency. Today's guest is Sonia Wilson. She has a master's, bachelor's of associates, along with her RDMS. She also has certification with CTT and CPTM. She is a seasoned ultrasound technologist and leadership professional with a passion for education, innovation, and patient-centered care. She holds a Master of Science in Organizational Leadership and a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration, with a concentration in Industrial Organizational Psychology from Southern New Hampshire University, as well as an Associates of Science in Healthcare Technology and an ultrasound diploma from Tidewater Community College in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Sonia's career began at Mary Washington Hospital, where she served as a staff sonographer before joining Philips Healthcare. At Philips, she advanced through several pioneering roles, from ultrasound clinical education specialist to becoming the first virtual clinical education specialist for general imaging, and later serving as global training and education manager. Currently, Sonia works as an ultrasound technologist at an outpatient imaging center, continuing her commitment to excellence in diagnostic imaging and patient care. Beyond her professional accomplishments, Sonia is deeply passionate about leadership development, continuous learning, and helping others grow in their personal and professional journeys. She finds joy in reading, traveling, cooking, and spending time with her family, especially being actively involved in her children's extracurricular activities. Guided by her favorite quote, "Education is more than a luxury. It is a responsibility that society owes to itself," by Robin Cook. Sonia believes that learning is the foundation of progress and that every opportunity to educate or inspire others helps build a strong community. Please help me welcome Sonia Wilson. Today, we're talking with Sonia Wilson about going from a clinical sonographer, and then she took a job in the commercial world with ultrasound, and then she's come back to clinical sonography. Her journey, some of the lessons she's learned, and how she applies them to her field today. So thank you, Sonia, for sharing and coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us first a little bit about yourself. Why did you get into ultrasound and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I've been a sonographer for 24 years. I started out in clinical ultrasound, and the last 20 years of my career, I've worked for an ultrasound manufacturer. And just recently, in the last year, moved back into clinical ultrasound. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I have worked in several different states doing ultrasound, and I love this field. I love everything about it and my journey in it. So I'm happy to share my experience with you guys.
Fun. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I was so intrigued with Sonia's journey here. And as I talked to her earlier, um, we've both been in for over 20 years. And the difference between when we first came out as a sonographer and now, and the opportunities that are um, available to us are so much different. And that's kind of exciting, I think, when you've been in this field for so long, that you can still renew your enthusiasm about the position, about the
Yes.
work. So I think that's important to note. Um, So I guess tell us a little bit about you got out of school and where did you start and what did that job look like for you? And
So earlier you had asked me about how I got into ultrasound, and it's actually quite a funny story. My mom is also a sonographer,
oh,
and
awesome.
yeah, it's very cool. And when I got out of high school, I wanted to take a year off, and my parents were like, absolutely not. The statistics are not good on that. You are not going to do that. So I went to a university and took my year off anyway at $25,000 a year. Took all the 8 o'clock classes, joined a sorority, all the things they tell you not to do your first year
Right.
in college. Um, my parents were like, "No, you need to get in community college. We're done with this." So I went to community college, and I spent a few years there trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And my parents are like, "Look, a career student is not what we have in mind for you. So figure out
Right.
what it is you're going to do in life." And so being that my mom did ultrasound, I was like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So that's kind of how it started. Luckily, I absolutely love ultrasound and being a sonographer. And I went to ultrasound school at a community college in Virginia Beach, and it was wonderful. When I graduated, I was the only one in my graduating class that was willing to move for a job. And that afforded me a lot of benefits because I wanted to work someplace where they did a little bit of everything. You and I talked about that a little bit about how,
Yeah.
back at that time, it was a rural hospital. There wasn't anything within an hour, hour and a half radius. And so you had to do everything. You had to do vascular, you had to do abdomen, small parts, OBGYN, baby heads, all the things.
Right.
Um, and that was really great for me straight out of school because it kind of made me a well-rounded sonographer straight from the get-go. Um, and so what led me into commercial ultrasound in that transition is my family wanted to move to Atlanta from the Virginia area. And when I moved down here to Atlanta, it's a very competitive market. There's not a lot of clinical positions available, and it's easier for them to hire somebody straight out of school and mold them into who they want them to be than to hire somebody with a background and some experience. So there was a clinical applications job open with one of the leading ultrasound manufacturers. And I was like, am I ready for this? I've only been scanning for like 4 years. I don't know if I can do this. And it's a company that my mom had worked for doing clinical applications as well. And she, loved working there. And she's like, you can do this. You can totally do this.
Yes.
And so I took the leap and I was like, most of the time I feel like when people go into applications, they've had 20-year careers in ultrasound and they've gotten injured and they can't scan anymore, or they have, all this experience. So it was kind of intimidating walking into this part of the ultrasound world, being surrounded by people a lot more senior with me, a lot more experienced than me, and then wondering if I had what it took to be successful in the role. Um, Thankfully, I had what it took, but I learned along the way a lot of different things from a lot of different people. So that's kind of how I got into commercial ultrasound. And then recently, in the last 6 months or so, I left commercial ultrasound and I now work at an outpatient imaging center and I love it. And there's a lot that went into that decision, but I'm sure we'll get into all that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love your willingness, first of all, to be able to relocate. I think, like you said earlier, opening up that possibility for yourself to try life in a different way and in a different space, I think is so valuable, right? And I think you
yeah,
learned that probably when you were in commercial and had to travel a lot and do a
a
lot of
lot
things, right? And so, but that can be scary too, right?
for
Going
sure.
out on your own. And so it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. So, and I think everyone can meet the challenge that's ahead of them, right? Like I heard you say, I just didn't know if I was ready after 4 years, and I thought, 4 years, that's rock solid, that's good. So seeing it from what your conversation is in your head versus what other people's opinion
Exactly.
of you are. I think it's important to maybe get feedback from what you did, like from your mom, and your mom's like, "Oh, absolutely, you could do
Yeah.
this." So I think it's important too for other people. Just this is what I'm thinking. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Take the plunge,
Take the
live
plunge.
on the edge,
Yeah, yeah.
push yourself for
And you
sure.
know what? If it doesn't work out, you tried it and you go back to something different. You make a
That's
different
right.
choice, right?
That's right.
Like that's um I hear all the time in my own head, but other people talking, and I've learned to say, we think about the worst case scenario most of the time. Well, what if it doesn't work? And what if it this or what if it doesn't that? And um I think the universe is always conspiring for your benefit,
Hmm.
for everybody's benefit. And so I always kind of flip it like, well, what if it works out? You know?
Yeah, for
So
sure. That's the flip side, that saying that says, but what if it does? But what if it does work out? And what if it is the
yeah,
greatest thing you've ever chosen to do? For sure.
yeah, yeah. So I love your willingness to take chances
Thanks.
because I think that's really important in ultrasound. We get in a rut and we get stuck in our own routine and ways, and then we get burnt out and we wonder, what are we going to do? And now, 20 years later, there are options and you pursue those. And so tell us, I'm so interested to see. I love this journey because I did a small amount of commercial with a manufacturing company, um, but not full time, right? So I didn't do the full training with them, and I did lower units just locally. I didn't do a lot of traveling with them. But I've always thought, as an ultrasound tech, man, I wish I knew what the applications people knew, right? Because I
Yeah.
think I'm kind of a believer in we probably use maybe 10 or 15% of what the machine could actually do.
Right.
It's just we don't know it well enough. And so um, I'm excited to talk about what you learned in commercial. And then now that you're going back, the mind shift and the different kinds of stresses and how it's different. So tell me a little bit about, um, but let's just start with the kind of training maybe that you got for commercial.
So I mean, it's really in depth because as a clinical application specialist, you're not teaching people how to do ultrasound. They already know how to do that usually. You're teaching them how to use your ultrasound system that your company makes to the best of its ability, to customize it to them, to use the technology in the best ways to get the results that they need. And so that means that you have to know it through and through, backwards and forwards. How does it work? How do I get it to look better? How do I customize it to that particular facility? And so you really spend a good, gosh, I spent like 2 weeks out at corporate learning these systems. But truly and honestly, in a clinical applications role, I always used to tell people, don't make a decision about this role until you've been in it at least a year, because it takes about 6 months to a year to really get comfortable in your shoes to know if it's a good fit for you or not. I would say that, those people that love to understand how things work and you like going into the settings of the system and putting in your own customizations and presets and customizing the labeling and all that, they make really good application specialists because they don't mind going in there and making changes. Um, and so, yes, learning how to be an application specialist was quite an adjustment because in the clinical world, right, our doctors want to know, is it a cyst or is it not a cyst? Do they have gallstones or do they not have gallstones? It's a yes, no, black and white kind of
Correct. Yeah.
world. You need to know the answers. And in the commercial aspect, it's not like that. They don't want you asking close-ended questions that are yes or no. They want to know like, well, why do you want to use that? And what are you going to do with it? And to keep that communication open. And so there's a lot of gray. And it requires a lot of business acumen that I did not have when I first started. That was something that I had to learn over the years by having people that were really good at it and modeled it for me. But there is a very vast difference between a clinical environment and a corporate commercial environment that takes getting used to for sure.
Yeah. And I hear what you're saying. You had people that helped you, that kind of mentored you, right? So I think it's important to know that when you do kind of step out in in courage and faith to try something new, there's typically always someone there who will come alongside you and help you, right?
Yes, yes.
And
And in commercial ultrasound, I have worked with some of the best physicians in the world that do the most innovative and cutting edge in medicine. I have worked with some of the smartest sonographers that have so much experience. And the one thing I can say about ultrasound in my experience is that we are a profession that loves to share, that loves to
yes,
make those that come after us better for what we have learned and what we have been through. And we like to share our experiences and to teach and to make our profession better and better from year to year. So, all of the people that helped me over those years, they wanted to do it. It wasn't because they had to do it, they
right.
wanted to do it. And yeah, just amazing people in ultrasound.
And I think that's important to know. Like, I remember telling my children this in school. They come home and complain about their teachers or whatever. And I'm like, look, nobody wants you to fail, right? Like, nobody really wants you to not succeed, you know? And
Yep,
so to keep that in mind too, when you're switching a location or a place or a job, that people really want you to succeed in whatever you're doing. So I think that's interesting. Yeah, because we are an occupation of needing mentors
hmm,
and people to pass things down.
that's
And
right.
that's so important, right? Um, and there's some people who feel a little more insecure, and so they don't want to share things. But there's almost equal amount of people who want to share versus those who don't want to share, you know?
Yeah.
And if you can't find someone in your department, I know STMS has tons of people, that if you just try to plug in, people there want other people to be successful,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
So I think that's important to know. So as much as as a ultrasound tech, as a staff technologist, I had young children, so I couldn't take a traveling job. But at the time, I know we'd always talk about, man, wouldn't it be great to do blah, 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 or blah, to be an application specialist because we
Sure.
all wanted that knowledge or that information. Um, but it's not it it's not all roses, right?
No, no, there are pros
So
and
not to
cons
be a
to
Debbie
anything
Downer,
you
but
do.
tell us the pros and the cons of
Yeah.
commercial work.
So the pros for me was that, I mean, and granted, when I started in commercial ultrasound, I wasn't married. I didn't have any children. I was in the prime of my life. I was in the place where I could do all of those things, right?
Mhm.
Um, the pros of commercial ultrasound for me is being on the leading edge of um, technology and innovation. I mean, I'm seeing things that probably won't come out until 5 to 10 years from now. And just, it's amazing the evolution in ultrasound, even in the 20 years since, that I've been doing it. Just the way that the technology evolves, it's so quick, we can barely keep up with it. And so being a part of that is so gratifying. Being able to do that leading edge type of ultrasound is just amazing, and the education that comes with it. Um, Other pros being exposed to many hospitals, many sonographers, many clinicians all over the world. I mean, I've installed systems in Italy. I have worked all across the United States, and there's just nothing that beats um, watching people, and their techniques are different. And if you say, "Hey, I really struggle with this," they're like, "Hey, have you tried this? Because this is really cool."
Right.
The tips and tricks that I have gotten are just invaluable, and that really plays a part in the sonographer that I am now. On the flip side, um, being able to work in all those different environments, hospital environments, outpatient environments, the different niches in ultrasound, getting to be a part of that. And then in commercial ultrasound, there's a lot of opportunity for leadership and training opportunities. So, when you work in the corporate world, everyone's climbing the corporate ladder. And so I feel like in clinical ultrasound, it's like, what do you move into from being a staff sonographer, being a
Right.
lead sonographer, being a sonography, or, an ultrasound manager? And maybe people want to go beyond that. And it's like, where do you go in that environment? And so moving into commercial ultrasound in the corporate world gives you a whole bunch of places that you can move into, and they're willing to train you and educate you to do that. I actually, when I went into commercial ultrasound, I only had my diploma in ultrasound and my associate's degree.
Mhm.
And while I was in commercial ultrasound, I was able to get my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. And there's reasons for that, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I mean, the opportunities are endless. Being able to work with the best of the best across the world. And I for sure did get to do that.
Yes.
However, with all the good, there comes, the flip side to that. And
Right.
I wouldn't call them cons, I would call them challenges, because there's a lot of things that you need to be realistic about when you move into commercial ultrasound. The travel is real. It is real. 70 to 75% of the time I was on the road, living out of a suitcase. I mean, there came a point where I slept better in a hotel than I did in my own bed at home.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and that's a real thing. And so it's a very high stress role. You're expected to do way more. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not, go to work at 8 and get off at 5. I mean, there are plenty of days that I worked 16-hour days, between traveling and getting in at 11 o'clock at night for an install at 7 a.m. the next morning. So if you don't have that flexibility, it's going to be really challenging for you. And with that comes, I could get overwhelmed really quickly. You have to be able to handle that high stress and manage that and prioritize and be such an independent worker. Once I did get married and started having kids, I was missing things at home. My son started walking and I wasn't here for it.
Yeah.
I got a video, but that's not the same as being here. So things had to change for me. I couldn't travel as much. So I moved into a virtual education role, and that was great. But I knew that I was going to miss things. I was going to miss weddings. I was going to miss weekend events that were going on within my family. And um, it's less direct patient care. I loved patient care. Being that I only scanned for 4 to 5 years before going into applications, like I didn't fall out of love with it. I still loved it. I loved
Right.
scanning patients and interacting with them. And I didn't do that in the same capacity when I was in clinical education and
Right.
doing applications. So there was feelings of being disconnected from that clinical world. Yes, I was involved in it in a different way, but I wasn't the person delivering the care to patients. And that was hard. And I missed that,
Yeah.
which is probably plays a part in why I was so eager to go back to it when the time came.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be challenging. You're dealing with a ton of different personalities, right? And
Oh,
nobody
yeah,
gets along with everybody, right? And
that's right.
sometimes we don't show up as our best self. Let's just be honest. Like either the person that you're working with is going through a lot and not showing up as their best self. Um, also, I think as ultrasound tech people, we are get ourselves in a routine so we can establish consistency for the physician, for
Yes,
ourselves, so that we don't miss things. And when somebody comes in to show us something new and to change that, that really rattles us, you know?
you're
It's,
n- hitting the
yeah,
nose on the head. Yeah, the nail
it's
on the
really
head.
hard. So I remember having one of my last um exposures to someone coming in to show new equipment and train me on the new equipment. The application is like, well, try to do this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. I knew that. Why didn't I do that? But your brain is just trying to process so many things, right? That
Yeah,
her little encouragement to do that was like, oh, yeah, thanks for telling me to go there.
yeah.
You're
I
trying,
always
your eyes are
say,
trying to get used to the grayscale. Your hands are trying to get used to the buttons, and
for
all of a
sure.
sudden it feels like I forgot how to scan, and it
Yeah.
can be disarming, right? And so I think you run into a little bit of resistance, as a commercial person coming to a staff sonographer sometimes because we have deadlines, we have patients, we have to get moving, we have to do this, we have to do that. And you're trying to teach us how to change to become better. And that can
But
be
we don't like change. Sonographers, we don't like change. I always tell people like
right,
s- every sonographer has to have a certain amount of type A in their personality to be good
right,
at what they do, right?
right,
Because when we don't have protocol, when we don't have a method to our madness, we miss things. And that's where what we don't want to be doing. So, and
right,
and sometimes, that overflows into our personal lives, but we're
right,
all have a little bit of type A controlness in our personalities for a
right,
good reason.
right,
I try to explain that to my husband when I'm like, don't fold the clothes that way. I'll fold the clothes because you're not folding them right, because there's the right way and there's
right.
a wrong way, you know.
Choose your
So
battles, right?
yeah. So I think like in applications, you have to have a good amount of people skills, right? Because everybody's different and
Well, plus,
everybody's
yeah,
you're right. There is a lot of resistance sometimes, but it's like anything, once they know that you're on their side
right,
and you'll teach them as much or as little as they want to know. Some people just don't want to learn anything new. They're at the end of their career scanning. They know they're retiring in 5 years and they're like, I don't want to learn anything new. I've already spent the last 30
right,
years learning all the new things. I'm good.
right.
And you just have to know those people and be able to like read them and tell, are they eager to learn something different or do they just kind of want to stick with the status quo and
Yeah,
adapt to that?
yeah. I think also it's like I don't want to look dumb in front of somebody or I don't want to miss something. And, like there's so much that goes on for the sonographer when someone comes in to show new equipment or train in new equipment. And you just kind of have to be humble about it, but you also have to grow a little bit of tougher skin too, right? Like you can't take things personally, you know, what the,
And
uh,
and know too, like applications people, we don't know everything. We don't.
right,
We learn
right,
as we go. And there have been plenty of times where I mean, I wasn't scanning patients every single day like the people that I was, teaching the system to were. And so there were so many times that they taught me things about the system that I didn't know and how
right,
they use it and a different way to navigate something. So no, I think it's important for people to know that we learn just as much from the people that we are doing applications with as we are sharing with them. And
yes,
I don't know everything. I still learn every single day in ultrasound.
yes,
Even now, I mean, I'm still learning. And so anybody that thinks that they know everything there is to know about ultrasound, that's where you got to worry because there is
right,
no way for you to know all the things.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. It's amazing teamwork if
Mhm.
if you allow it, right?
One thing that I'll never forget my mom telling me is, Sonia, the thing is that a good sonographer can take whatever system is in front of them and put out the best image that that system can put out. Because if you think about like what I learned on in ultrasound school compared to what's currently on the market, like, I mean, that's like
Not even
prehistoric,
applicable, right?
right? Right. And all of those things, there's a certain level of image that those systems can put out. And physics is physics and ultrasound is ultrasound. Use your tools, use them to the best that you know how, and put out a good image based on that. So um I think that's important for us to know that we have the capability, to do the best that that system can do.
Yeah, yeah. I think too, time, right? Like, as a traveler, my first work isn't always my best on the machine, right? And oh yeah, I've scanned on these machines for 20 years, but your machine is different. And I know
Yeah,
they don't believe this, but there's a gazillion different ways to program that machine.
for
And
sure.
so getting used to the grayscale and on your eyes and the limits of the color. And it's going to take me a couple scans, you know,
Right.
to really get comfortable with
That's right.
that machine. So, I don't think that people really understand. It takes some time to get used to and get
It
in.
does. And we're creatures of habit. I mean, most sonographers that I've seen, they work out of muscle memory. They get to a point where they don't look at the control panel to find the buttons. Their
Right,
hands just naturally do it. So
right,
when you bring in a new system where the buttons are in different, I always say the engineers do that as like a Jedi mind trick, like put the button in a different place just to
right.
see if you're paying attention. And we operate out of muscle memory in all that we do. And so to bring change in, it's really, really uncomfortable. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about you mentioned in here moments when ultrasound alone wasn't enough and feeling stuck or limited.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
So I did clinical applications, traveling and all that for a good 10 years or so. And then got to thinking, if this it doesn't really work out, this commercial ultrasound thing, what am I going to do? Because I'm making really, really good money. I don't know if I can make that if I go back to clinical scanning. I'm at like, what often feels like the top of your career. What do I do if this doesn't work out? And I was feeling like all I have is my associate's degree and my diploma in ultrasound. Like that's not enough. And I'm looking at all these people around me that have all this other education and experience. And I was like, if you don't like where you're sitting, change it. Do
Yes,
something to make it different. And so this was like during COVID time, right? And they weren't doing a lot of registries. I couldn't go and get another registry to do some continuous training. So I was like, I need to go back to school and I wanted to go back and get my bachelor's. So I did. And luckily, the company that I was working for, they paid for that. And then once I was done with my bachelor's, I was like, I'm already here. I'm already in this mindset. Why not go and get my master's? And so I did that as well. Um, all that to say, when you're feeling limited, when you're feeling stuck, grow yourself, educate yourself, do something different to open those doors because they usually don't just open for you.
right.
You have to take some steps to get there. Yeah. And so I got my bachelor's in, business administration. Um, and then I got my master's in organizational leadership. So I was branching out of ultrasound so that if I got tired of ultrasound, if I didn't want to do this anymore, I had other things to fall back on. And because the role that I was in, I was feeling stuck. I didn't like what I was doing as much. I didn't like parts of the organization. I wanted to get out, but I didn't feel like I could. And so the best way for me to do that was to get some more education. And I found that throughout my entire career, like when I'm feeling that way, I need to just make some change and not be scared of that because I never thought that I would get my bachelor's degree.
Right.
And my master's was like not even on my radar at all,
Right.
ever.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I did all of that working full time, traveling, raising two kids, and yes, it was hard. It was super hard, but I wouldn't give it up for anything. Because
I
I
always,
literally don't feel like I have any limitations now. I can, if ultrasound doesn't work out, I have other things I can do,
yes,
you
yes.
know?
Yeah, I always say when you feel stuck, get curious.
Yes.
Like find something that you're really curious about. Something in the
Hmm.
department, the trophon, how does it work? What chemicals does it use? What are the options? What are the other options out there?
You
What
can do so
about,
much in the
yeah,
ultrasound
or
world
or
itself.
just diving deep into a specific exam you did, like
Yeah,
appendicitis or something, and learning a much deeper level of that
right.
exam, so that you really become excellent at each specific thing in the
Yeah,
department. If you're not, and I think we evolve, right? We all go through life changes, right? You were single and that worked for you. And then you got married and had a baby. Well, now that might not be working for you.
that's right.
And so it's wonderful that our occupation um, can allow us to make those changes.
Yes.
And I think it's the network that you have, the people you know, the people you surround yourself with. I talk about SDMS a lot on this podcast because, you might be doing it 20, 25 years and you sit down next to somebody who's new and they're excited and you're like, man, this really is, it renews your appreciation for your occupation. Or you end up staying in touch with them and then kind of mentoring them a little bit, or,
Yep.
hey, how you doing? Or what are you thinking about for your next step? Or what do you want to do? Or, how do you want to, um, excuse me, um, set yourself apart? There's a lot of different ways to do that without stepping on people's toes or, you know,
Hmm.
thinking narrow-mindedly about it.
Yeah.
And so over the course of 20 years, there's been so many more opportunities that open up for us if we're connected,
Yes.
right? And I go to all these places with people who have been in the same place for 10 or 15 years, and they don't even think to ask, right? Because they don't know. They don't know how it can be different. They don't know, oh, that's the way they do it at other places. Like,
Yeah.
and to just be able to see, like, oh, well, I've seen this done 5 different ways. I've
Yep.
probably taken the picture of the mandible and maxilla 5 different ways because people like to see it in all these different ways.
Right.
And I haven't always agreed with the way they've wanted me to do it, but that's the way what they wanted me to do it.
Yep.
And so, but it caused me to do a deeper dive into that imaging
Hmm.
and that anatomy so that I really am pretty rock solid. I know when I'm getting it, right? So,
And a lot of times they have a reason for wanting it done that way. And if you just
right,
ask the question, like, hey,
right,
what makes you want to see it this way? Sometimes the answer has surprised me. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of it like that.
right,
I get it now why you're
right,
asking me to bend over backwards for this image and
right,
why it's needed. And um, I feel like the clinicians that we work with, they're willing to share if you ask. They're not just going to readily give it to you, but
right,
if you ask the question, why is this important? Why am I taking this image? Why do I need to see
right.
this? They'll tell you, and more often than not, it will surprise you and make you go, oh, okay,
Right.
I'm willing to put that effort in now. The networking, it's so important to just, look outside your own box and when you go to SDMS, when you go to all these conferences, like really make the most of that time and
Right.
figure out, what is it that you want to get out of that? And is there something that's going to be there that you can lean into to, make those mentoring relationships and learn more
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
share your knowledge too.
Yeah.
I feel
Everybody has
like you
something to
you
share.
being in this field for so many years, like there comes a time where it's like, okay, you need to give back because you've been
Right.
poured into, you need to pour back in to those
Exactly what
coming after
happened to me.
you.
Exactly what happened to me. I hit some line in the sand, for lack of a better way to say it, that it's like, okay, Deb, you've got a responsibility.
Yeah,
Like people have poured into you for 20 years, who are you pouring into?
yeah,
What are you doing to make this society a better place, right?
yeah.
Um, and there's plenty of people, even on personal levels. Like I know people who work really hard to try to get a certain level or a promotion, and then they don't get it, right? And yet they're still surviving, they're still showing up, they're still giving. And so there is a process probably for that person to know how to get over that or how to succeed or how to overcome that. And what did they do? Like
Yeah.
life's not a bed of roses. There's going to be some ups and downs and disappointments, and maybe somebody took your dream away from you. Maybe you wanted to be the lead tech and now somebody else took that and you're not, or whatever the case may be. How can you spend that to work for you but in a better way, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's in that network of people that you find those answers, right?
That resilience. Yeah.
Solutions. I think you find how to be resilient. And so, on a personal level as well as a professional level, I think there's a plethora of experience there. And,
Yeah.
and just how to move your own profession forward, right? Like, how
And
do you
I
become better?
truly feel like when something doesn't come your way, it wasn't ever meant for you. And there's
Yes,
another opportunity that you are meant for. Go find it,
right,
right?
right,
Because what we think we should be doing isn't always what we should be doing,
right.
and there's something better for you or there's something that you're better meant for. And I have found that to be true over and over and over throughout the years.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell us now, we're going to take the shift from commercial to back to clinical ultrasound, which is
Yeah.
not a common decision to make. Mostly, I think, just from a financial standpoint, right? And so, was your thought process to doing that, and why were you wanting to go back? And so, talk us through that decision
Yeah.
making process for you.
So I probably, unless pushed, would not have left commercial ultrasound. It wasn't my choice to leave, but um, that's what was presented to me, and I had to figure out what to do with it. And I did not feel stuck. I was scared to go back to clinical ultrasound, like you said, for the financial reasons, because, I was at the pinnacle of making, the top amount that you can make in ultrasound, I feel like, and how was that going to work going back to clinical? And it had been 20 plus years since I had scanned, like day to day, patient after patient. Could I still do it? I'm not a young chicken like I was when I was doing it the first time.
Yeah.
Um, and I could have gone to a competitor. A lot of people do. Me personally, I'm not built that way. Am loyal to a fault, and I just didn't feel like that was for me to go to a competitor. I have a lot of loyalty to the company that I worked for. Um,
So let's just be
and
clear. The company was downsizing.
yes,
And so then now you're forced to make a decision, right?
Yes.
You're like, I can't go to somebody else, right?
I don't,
So
yeah,
I
I
think it's
had no
important.
desire to do that.
I think that's important to note though, right? And you were so free to acknowledge that loyalty to a fault. Like the company wasn't loyal to you. They're like, "Hey, we're not making money. You got to go." Right?
Yeah.
Um so learning that you got to do what's best for you, regardless of
Yes.
what the repercussions of other people.
You never know what is in front of you. You just don't. I never in a million years thought that I'd be looking at separating from them and that I would be that, that I would be the one chosen to not be there with 20 plus years experience in those systems and those legacy systems. And, that knowledge is hard to come by. I never thought it would be me, but here I was and supporting, a family of four and being the breadwinner, if you will, at that time. And it was scary as all get out. I'm not even going to lie.
Right.
But I had my degrees and I was like, I could go do something completely different. And I was tempted. I was so tempted to just go into HR or go be the department lead at some hospital.
Yeah.
But what I found was like I needed a break. I needed a mental health break. All of that high stress, all of that being overwhelmed, it was taking a toll on me.
Yes.
And my family was seeing it, they were feeling it, and I needed a break. I needed to go back to basics, back to my roots.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me just see what's out there. And um I found this outpatient place and it's perfect. I mean, I'm there while my kids are in school. I am available every single weekend for all their things and extracurriculars. I go in and I clock in and I scan my patients and I love it while I'm there and I clock out and nobody calls me.
Yeah.
Nobody calls me and says, "Hey, Sonia, can you be on this call with China at 10 o'clock at night?" No
Yeah.
one's calling me for that. And
Right.
I love it. There's mental health is worth some money. So,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
that's what it was for me. And like I said, I never fell out of love with scanning. I missed it those 20 years I was in commercial ultrasound. I missed that interaction with patients. I missed being a part of their journey. And um, yeah, so I chose to go back into clinical ultrasound, and it's the best decision that I have made. And it's not to say that things won't change again, but we
Right.
found a way to make it work. I am so lucky to have such a supportive husband that's like, whatever it takes, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out a way to make it work. This is
Yeah.
not a deal breaker for us. And if you're happy here and if it fills your tank, let's do it.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, so we've been able to make it work, and I right now would not change a thing.
Yeah. So tell me, so I think of this like, the company let you go and you thought it was a horrible thing, but yet what a gift.
Yeah,
The if the company didn't turn you down or let you go because of downsizing or whatever, um, you would have never known the peace there
yeah.
is
I
to
wouldn't have taken that step
come
on my own.
home and see your kids and be a part
Yeah.
of their life every day and have that peace that you were probably really looking for,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that stability and yeah.
And here's the
So it's
thing,
really a blessing, right?
it really is. And to be honest, I mean, they're a company. They need to do what they need to do. I get it. I've learned that, it's all about the money. And
Without
I
a
mean, it's
dollar.
a corporation. I mean, they have to make a bottom line, and I get that. Um, but they provided me so much over those 20 years. Like, I can't be mad. I can't be upset. They grew me into the sonographer that I am, the person that I am. They've given me all the tools that I need to be successful after leaving them. And for that, I am eternally grateful.
Yeah.
Um,
So tell me how that has changed you as a sonographer now. You
Yeah, so
were before, now you've
yeah,
had all this corporate training and you come back to being a sonographer. What gems have you been able to take away from the corporate work and bring back to,
so many. I mean, that the confidence, like you said, as a staff sonographer, you're often like, I wish I knew as much as they did about the systems. I know that now. You can literally put me in front of any ultrasound system and I'm going to make it sing to the best that it can sing
yeah,
because I know what the technology does. I know, how to translate it from what I was doing at that particular manufacturer to any other ultrasound system.
right.
They all are wonderful. They all excel at different things and do certain things well. And, any ultrasound system that you get, it's telling of a good sonographer if they can make it work the way that it should work. And I have that confidence now, that young sonographer going, I only have 4 years of scanning experience. I don't know if I can do this. That doesn't exist anymore. I've been exposed to the best of the best in the world. Doctors that taught me just amazing things that I would have never learned had I not been in commercial ultrasound. They molded me and showed me all the tips and tricks and why they do things the way that they do. And I've learned so much from all the sonographers that I've worked with, doing their installs and watching them scan and watching the technique that they use and thinking outside of the box, like who would have ever thought to scan a thyroid with a transvaginal transducer? But if you've never done it, you should try it because it's gorgeous. Um, like I would have never thought to do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've been so blessed with all that I've learned and being able to apply that now for my patients and get back to doing that and being able to, push forward and not go, okay, I guess I can't get that image. No, I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to work for it. And I know how to do that now. Um, so yes, all of that knowledge has translated into being able to be much more confident in my imaging and much more confident in the patient care that I can provide. And it's
And I
just
think
been awesome.
open-minded, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember years and years ago going to labor and delivery to scan a patient. And of course, she's there for a short cervix and I'm going to do a cervical length. And she's like, oh, no, 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 no. They told me not to put it. I'm like, well, I know, but it's okay if we do this vaginal probe because it's diagnostic and it gives us information that we would treat you with. And she's like, I'm not okay with that. And I'm like, okay, what if I put a glove on this probe and put it on her labia?
Yeah.
I didn't put it inside. I'm just gonna, what am I gonna find? She was happy. I got beautiful pictures,
Yep.
and I just marked it on the thing. Patient refused transvaginal. I talked her into a translabial,
Yep.
and it was beautiful, right? But just to be able to have that flexibility of
Yeah.
how can we do it different to get the same results or better, right? Working with the patient's limitations. So I definitely think my very, very, very minute, small experience with applications on a very lower end did ha that was the gift that that gave to me was to open my mind to think outside the box. Well, let's
Yep.
try it. Well, let's see what it looks like. Well,
Yeah, you have nothing to lose. It
right,
may not work. It
right,
may not work. I've
maybe
seen
not.
things not work many times.
Right,
But again, what if it does?
right.
And now you have the, confidence to push that envelope and to really go out there and like see if you can make it happen even with the limitations that you have because, you have that knowledge to know what those limitations are and how you can push them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you do have limitations, right?
Yeah.
There's bad equipment out there that people are still using, technology that's over 10 years old that I'm like, are you kidding me? Wow. Like I'm amazed, but from a hospital perspective of finances, maybe it looks a little different. We're not seeing the whole big picture of the reasons why hospitals make the decisions they do.
Right.
So, um, so we talked about the continual learning and the profession, and even now you I think shared with me you were taking the registry for
Yes.
RVP.
Yes,
So
I'm taking my
congratulations.
RVT. Thank you, because every job out there these days, let me tell you, the job market from 20 years ago to now, it is wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
And every job, pretty much requires you to have an RVT. Every job opportunity that I saw was like must have RVT or must have it within 6 months. So it's like, all right, well, if that's what's needed, let's go do it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am being in education for the last 20 years, ultrasound education, like I am a huge proponent to if you don't like where you're at, change it. And the way that you're going to do that's through education. And I'm a huge proponent. I loved going back to school in front of my kids because I think that it showed them like you're never too old to make a change, to do something
Right.
different. And there's always room to grow and learn.
Yeah.
It's when you think you learned everything that you have to learn that you need to be scared because
Right.
that's not a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, I am returning back to school in another month and a half, 2 months
Good
here.
for you.
And I'm 55. I'll be 56 when I start this year and a half program. And I'm thinking, and my kids are like, Mom, when are you gonna stop? Like, when's enough enough? And I'm like, I'm always learning,
Yeah.
And I listened to a book recently. I thought, why am I listening to a book about hospitality? Like, I don't care about the restaurant industry. I don't, but man, oh my gosh, my mind was blown at the ideas that I got to take my practice of ultrasound up another level, you know?
Yep.
So, like, you never know where your inspiration's going to come from, you
That's right.
know? You just
Yep.
don't. So, reading books, reading inspiration, being around other people who are doing something different. Hey, what are you watching or what are you reading or, anything like that. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. That
Yeah.
still after 20 whatever years, you can still get excited about doing your job, you know?
Look, I was such a better student in my 40s than I
Yeah.
was in my
Right.
20s, for
Right.
sure. I valued that so much more when I, was doing it older and could really understand like what that education allowed for me. Um, yeah. So
So,
don't ever think that you can't go back and do more. I wish I had done it when I was supposed to be doing it. I originally wanted to be an OBGYN, and then I did my first year of college and I was like, no, we're not doing this for the next 12 years. And then fast forward, I'm doing it for another 12 years and I could have been making some serious bank doing what I loved and wanted to do, but
but we needed you in ultrasound. And so the
that's right.
universe
That's
put
right.
you where you were supposed to be, right?
That's right.
Um,
Yep.
so you know, I think we know what we want in life, but then when life gives us what we really need, or
Yeah.
fills our heart, it's so much better, right?
Yeah.
But the joy of it is that you get to work alongside them, right? And so
Yep.
that's what I love is I don't want to be the front runner. I don't want to be the one in the front with getting all the accolades and, attention and whatever. But I can work alongside somebody to help them be, the
Yep.
star of the show or whatever. So that's exciting to me to be that influential. So, in closing, tell us maybe what advice you would give to other sonographers, or yeah, let's start there, or an inspiring thought, or
I would say my biggest thing is don't underestimate yourself. Don't limit yourself. Put yourself in those uncomfortable places. Take those chances because they are so worth it. Even if it doesn't work out, there's something to be learned there. There's people to meet there that will impact your life. Um, So take those chances. Always be learning something new. Even no matter how big, no matter how small. small. If going back to school is not for you, that's fine. It's
Right.
not for everybody, but keep learning, keep challenging yourself, keep figuring out how you can, contribute more to the world. I'm a huge advocate for continuous learning and professional growth, and reach out to people, do that networking, um, find out what you can give back, where you can give back to others. Um, and if you're not happy where you're at, if you're not doing what you want to be doing and you need a change, just go do it. Just take the steps and go do it. Don't wait. Don't let it completely tear you down. Don't let it completely wreck your mental health before you get there. Just, be comfortable in the uncomfortable, because there's life after what you think you're at the pinnacle of.
Yeah.
If you had told me 10 years ago you're going to go back to clinical ultrasound and it's going to be okay, I would have told you you were crazy.
Yeah.
And here I am, and it's okay. We
Right.
figured out how to make it work. So don't be scared of the unknown. There's life after, whatever you think you're at the top of.
Yes, and I will say, Sonia likes to end a lot of her, I think you told me you put it as your signature.
I do in my emails. My
Yeah.
favorite quote by Robin Cook.
Yes. Education is more than a luxury. It is a responsibility that society owes to itself.
Yep.
I love that because you'll never go wrong with more education. I don't care how old you are, how young you are. I just I don't think,
And
it'll
I don't care how you get there
wrong.
either. I mean, it
Right,
structured, college education's not for everybody. Some of the best sonographers that I know, my mother included, learned on the job, working right along these doctors, learning it for the first time too.
right.
So it doesn't matter how you get there. It doesn't matter how long it takes to get there. Just get there
Just
and
get
just keep pushing to get there.
right,
Yeah.
right. And there's always more. There's always more to learn.
Yep.
Always more to learn. So,
And
yeah,
it'll be worth it. It'll all be worth it.
it will be worth it. It will be worth it. I think in this conversation, I would also add is build your network of people
Mhm. Yep.
because you're not just building a resume, you're building a network of people who can come alongside you and just help walk you through things, and
Yeah.
well, yeah, we struggle with this too, or it used to be like this. So this is really better than what we used to have it, even though it's not where we want to be, right? And I know there's been a little pushback with ARDMS not wanting to make it a associate's or a bachelor's program. Do it anyway. You don't need
Yep.
ARDMS's blessing to do it. Do it anyway. Do
Yep.
it because it will expand your borders. It will give you more opportunities, possibly later. And you don't know where those opportunities would be, but
That's right.
it will give you opportunities. You'll never go wrong with education. Never. I just love it. Can never stop growing. Thanks so
Great.
much, Sonia. I so love your heart and your vulnerability with us and sharing your expertise and your
Thank you. Thank you
lessons.
for having me.
Um, it's a real gift to us as other sonographers, and I think it's a source of encouragement. So I hope
Good.
those listening will, take heart that if you're not happy now, maybe it's just the stage of your life for right now, because maybe you have kids, right?
Yeah,
And kids are going to grow up and then you get to do whatever you want to do, you know?
that's right.
So maybe take hope in that. But know that there are plenty of opportunities for you,
Yep.
as Sonia is a great example of that for us. So thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to It's All About the Frequency podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Share it with a friend and remember to keep your frequency high.